put your memorandum that they give you, your ID, and your information card. So some places make you write all the information out just on a 3x5 card. Some places have a printed out card that you just fill in your information. Whatever they give you, put all that critical information that they require you to have on you at all times in a Ziploc bag. If you, depending on the size, you could possibly fit it in a snack size bag. I prefer sandwich size bags just because they're easier to fit everything in. But also if you have any orders that you want to keep on you, you can do that. They didn't ever check our orders, so we didn't need to have them on us, but if you want to, you can put that in the bag as well. They're going to probably tell you to get your wet weather bag ready for 0 day, and they're going to give you some tape and some Sharpies to write some ID tags with your Sharpie. So when you do these, I think if I when you do these, they're going to have you write your name and the last 4 of your social on them. How they do it might change, but you're going to have to put them on your canteen and on your wet weather bag. So when you do it on your canteen, you're only going to have it on your canteen for about 24 hours. So if you write it on a smooth surface, write whatever you have to do, tear off the edges, make it look nice, then take it off and put it on your canteen, that works great. Because it's a lot easier to write it on the smooth surface, cut it, and it still sticks really well to the canteen, and it's not going to fall off in 24 hours. The wet weather bag, though, is a little more difficult to get it to stay on. So if you write it on a hard surface first and then take it off and then put it on your wet weather bag, it may not last. So put your tape on your wet weather bag first, then write it, and you can worry about cutting it off later. But do that before you go to bed. Do not wait until the morning of PT to get it done. You're going to be waking up really early to begin with, and you never know if it's going to take you longer than you expect. So just do yourself a favor and get it done before you go to bed. For day 0, you're going to start off with a run, so make sure you break in your combat boots so you don't have to run in super uncomfortable shoes. Hopefully you've already broken your boots to some degree, but you're going to actually be running in your boots. So take it a little step further. If you need to buy an extra pair of Dr. Scholl's or something, do what you got to do, but try to make them comfortable. To prepare for the 2 mile, I mean, just make sure you can run a 2 mile. It's not terribly difficult. Just prepare to run a little slower there because you're going to be in nasty weather probably. It's probably going to be hotter and more humid than you're used to, and you're also going to be wearing much heavier clothing. So prepare for those 2 things. So if you have, I think it was 18 minutes for the 2 mile, make sure you can run it in, I'd say, 15 minutes. And that gives you plenty of time. I think most of us still got done in about 14 to 15 minutes. So that's like the worst case scenario, is if you're really close on time. But again, this is one of those things that they don't care if you're the first one or the last one, as long as you pass. That's all they care about. Preparing for the obstacle course, I highly recommend looking at the videos. I'll put a link in the description on what all the obstacles are and how to perform them. They give you a brief rundown of all the obstacles beforehand, but after that they expect you to remember it. So if you do it wrong at any point, they'll tell you, like, come back down, or you failed, or however they choose to say it, and then they'll make you stand to the side and wait, and then you'll try again. You're allowed to fail, I believe, 2 obstacles, as long as they're not one of the mandatory ones. So the tough one and the competence climb are the 2 mandatory ones, and you can't fail them. All the other ones are not optional, but if you fail 1 or 2, it's okay, you still pass. So the idea is still hitting that, I think it's like the 80-70% marker or somewhere in there. Some recommendations for the course. make sure you know how to climb a rope just in case you don't do the tough one first. I spent some time trying to figure out how to do the various rope climbing techniques, and you use your legs to do it properly. However, when we did it was the very first obstacle, so climbing without your feet is not a hard feat at that point. But if you don't start on that one, or if you just happen to be very tired, or your upper body strength isn't that great, then learn how to climb a rope beforehand, because that you don't want to get kicked out for that obstacle because you can't climb a rope. As for the other ones, I would strategize failing. And I know it sounds really weird, but if you're really tired from the obstacle course, you're allowed to fail these obstacles. And even if you fail them one time each, you could fail every single obstacle one time. But as long as you pass it on the second time, you're good. You could even fail 2 obstacles twice because you have 2 shots. As long as they're not the mandatory ones. But strategize with it. I was trying to do the whole thing without failing anything. And at the very end, I was just so tired that the guy said, nope, he said I didn't maintain a low enough silhouette over the obstacle, and he said to come back, and I had to just stand to the side and catch my breath. Was I a little upset that I failed? Honestly, not really. I mean, it was maybe a little frustrating because I was like, really, like, it wasn't that bad, but at the same time I was like, thank you, like, now I have time to catch my breath. You can drink water. So don't be afraid to fail an obstacle the first time, just so you can catch your breath. It makes the rest of the obstacle course a ton easier. Once you pass 0 day, they're going to give you a roster number, and you're gonna remake all your identification tape. So all the stuff you did the day before, they're gonna tell you to throw it out, and now they're gonna give you the same tape, same Sharpies, but they're going to give you like stencils, number stencils, and you're going to write your roster number on the tape. Make sure it looks good. Depending on where you go, some care more. So like I've heard that Fort Campbell will actually kick you out if you do it not to a professional standard, especially if they have a bunch of people that didn't fail the obstacle course. No one really checked ours at Fort Benning, so it wasn't as big of an issue, but don't ever risk it. Just do it as best as you can and you'll be good. So try to strategize when you do the stencils, because they'll probably give you about 3, maybe 4 sets of stencils for everyone. So you're not going to be able to all do them at once, and they'll give them to you around dinner time. So you can either do your stencils first, then go to dinner, in which case you might get first dibs on the stencils, but you might get last dibs on food. Or you can get food first and then rush back to do the stencils and hope there's not a big line, in which case you kind of maybe get first, but just look to see what everybody else is doing and just try to do it at a time you're not waiting in line or having to share them with a million people. When you do the stencils, make sure you just use the Sharpie. When you put it on the tape, make an outline of the number and then give the stencil to someone else. You can then fill it in with the Sharpie while they're doing the stencil. Don't waste your time. We had a bunch of guys who were trying to do the outline and fill it in with the stencil, and it just kept other people from using the stencils. So once you have it outlined, give it to someone else, let them use it, and then you can worry about filling it in. When you do these stencils, the easiest way to do it is to put it on the object first, because this is the one that will have to last the entire rest of air assault. So I don't recommend writing on a hard surface first and then taking it off and putting it on the object, because it's just not going to hold as well, and there's a much better chance of it falling off and you having to remake it. So you only have to do it for your canteen and your ACH. So just put it on your canteen, put it on your ACH, get the center stencil first. So it's a 3-digit number. do the first number first, that way you know it's perfectly in the middle. Outline, give it to someone else, fill it in, get the next number to the left or right, doesn't matter, and just make sure they're equal space apart. And then again, outline, and then hand them away, fill them in, then take a knife and cut the sides off to make it a nice clean edge. You don't have to worry about really damaging the equipment too much. As long as you're not stabbing it, it's not going to leave much of a mark, if any. Whenever possible, find someone to share a load of laundry with. It's going to be a rare occurrence if you have enough stuff to actually do a full load of laundry. Usually you're just going to have 1 or 2 uniforms at a time. So don't be that guy who takes up that entire machine because you have 2 things in there. There's only a few washers and dryers for the entire class, and everyone's trying to use them at once. So don't be the jerk who takes them all. In fact, there were some people that were kind of like anti-jerk people. I don't know what else to call them, but if they saw someone who did that, they would actually go in, take their clothes out, and just throw them out, and then they would like commandeer the washer machine. Might be a little extreme. Hopefully it doesn't happen to you, but if nothing else, just prevent it by sharing the laundry machine. When it comes to day 1, there's not a lot to do in preparation for it. I'd say hydrate for PT, start packing your ruck that evening. Want to do it the morning of, and start studying. And don't overthink your packing list. You're going to pack that ruck the night before. At this point, you have probably gone through that packing list 2 or 3 times at least. Once you've done it once or twice, calm yourself. You've gone through it. It's not like someone's out to get you going through your stuff and pulling things out. Once you've got it covered, just sit back, relax, study a little bit because you already have stuff you can start studying, and just go to bed. There were people out going through their rucks and making sure they had things on, that everything was on the list, 5 times. At that point, the more you do it, the more likely you are to actually lose something. So do it once. If you really want to, do it twice. After that, just put it away, don't touch it, study, then go to bed. You might actually end up with a little bit of extra time, so if you have something you need to do or people you need to talk to, you can do that as well, but sleep will also be kind of valuable. So if you are able to just go to sleep and get a little bit of extra rest before that next morning, I'd say go for it. Day 2, you've got that ruck, so make sure you stretch before it. If you're not used to rucking, hopefully you've prepared for it at least a little bit. If you're Army, you've probably done several of them, so you're not as likely to really need any advice from me. But if you're an Air Force cadet or just anyone in a branch other than the Army that maybe doesn't do a lot of rucking, make sure you prepare for this. And it's going to be just as mandatory that you stretch beforehand. Also maybe making sure your boots are comfortable, because if your boots don't fit or you just haven't broken them in during this, whatever the case, if you start getting blisters on this shorter ruck, this is the beginning of air assault. You've still got the entire rest of the time and the longer ruck at the end. So make sure you're prepared for this, whether it's your boots, stretching, hydration. Just make sure you're mentally and physically prepared to get this ruck done. After all of that, they're going to quiz you a lot. So if you haven't studied up to this point, you messed up. Not because it's mandatory. They will give you time to study and they recommend it. But if they're going to quiz you that much, you not knowing the information is doing you a disservice, because now they're quizzing you. You seem like you don't know anything. And now you're losing out on valuable time, because if you had studied the information and they quiz you, now you're actually remembering the information. Whereas what I made the mistake of is I only studied a little bit, thinking I've still got a couple days to study, I'll be fine. But then when they quizzed us all day, I barely knew any of the answers. Not because I wasn't going to be prepared for the test, but because I hadn't prepared yet. So don't do that. Study, I would say, the night of day 1 when you have a little extra time. That way when they start quizzing you, you're good. Day 3, kind of like the other days, there's not really a lot to prep for, especially during this first one. There's not much that you need to do prior to air assault to prepare for this. Day 3 starts with the rifle PT, or at least it did at Fort Benning. I don't know if they have a different PT, different sessions, or at different bases. I don't know, but I know it started with rifle PT for us, and it was a lot of tricep workouts. So I'd say if there's any way that you could prepare, do some tricep workouts. Tricep, shoulder, that was the entire workout. Just constant repetitions. You don't have to do heavy weight. You're just using your rifle. But it's a ton of repetitions. So I guess you can prepare that way. Advice for day 4, learn some jodies, or some running cadences, whatever you like to call them in your branch of the military. Learn them for the run, because else it's going to be quiet and just a little bit more miserable. Having everyone doing the same thing and getting to call something that's kind of funny, has some humor in it, that makes it just that much more worthwhile. Else you're going to be running in either silence or you're just getting yelled at the whole time. So those jodies, running cadences, really make this fun. So if you learn some, share them. You'd be surprised how many people there either didn't know them or were unwilling to call them because they didn't want to do it kind of with a bunch of people they didn't know. So before you get to air assault, or maybe the night before if you're good at memorizing things last minute, look up some running jodies and be ready to call them during the run. It'll make everything so much better. Similar to day 1, you want to memorize and start studying the information they gave you in class the day before. They will probably spend a lot of the free time quizzing you, and if you hadn't studied up to this point, then it's just going to be kind of a disappointment to them, and also you're missing out on some valuable study time. There's not as much to learn during this phase, especially at this point, as compared to the first phase, but still memorize everything you were given up to that point and just be prepared to answer questions. At this point, they're going to give you extra time to practice if you so desire. So they're going to have mandatory practice time, and then they're going to have extra time to practice. My advice, stay as long as you can. And if you think you've got it down, help someone else. You will learn more by practicing and then helping other people practice than you will just practicing on your own and then going back to your room and studying a piece of paper. The second phase is mostly memory and also like muscle memory. So you have to remember what you're looking for, but you have to be able to physically go from like each point on the inspection in a very short amount of time. You want to be able to remember exactly where to go, because if you miss one thing, that one place you miss might be where the issue was. So practice as much as you can. Once you're done practicing, help someone else. There's going to be plenty of people having a hard time with this. If you find one of them, help them. It's nice for them. It's actually surprisingly helpful for you as well. So you can think of it as a good Samaritan. You can also be selfish and realize it's helping you. It doesn't matter. Just help someone else. Day 5, study some more. Remember, you just have to pass. Unless you're going for that top cadet, you don't need to try to get like a really good score on these things. Do your best. I'm not telling you to slack off, but once you've studied and you're comfortable, be good with it. Don't have to stress out about it. Study while you can. The bigger thing in this is not going to be the knowledge portion. It's going to be that hands-on portion. So again, when they give you time to practice with those rigs, practice, practice, practice. When you're done, help someone else. Same as before. And as a general reminder, again, in this course, you are treated like adults, but they are going to expect results. So whether that's cleaning up after yourself or just doing what they're telling you to do. Whatever the case is, don't goof off. We did a lot of extra kind of PT on day 5, not because we needed to, but because people weren't doing what they were supposed to, and they say, okay, well, if you guys are going to goof off, then we're going to have some fun. And so we did extra PT. So just a reminder, the PT wasn't terribly hard, but if you want to avoid getting super sweaty in the heat, or more sweaty than you already are, don't goof around, act like an adult, because that's what they're treating you like.